But first, back to politics and whether President Obama and Democrats could pay a price for the scandals now rocking the Secret Service and the GSA, the General Services Administration. Our first read team points the government can't afford another scandal to surface again anytime soon, and neither can the party that has come to represent the idea that government is at least part of the solution to collective problems, the Democrats. Let me bring in our News Nation political panel, Aaron McPike, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and nationally syndicated radio talk show host Steve Deace still with us. He's endorsed Newt Gingrich. Thank you both. Aaron, let me start off with you. Our first read team also points this out clearly. It says, make no mistake, these scandals are not coming from the Obama White House or from the aides working closest with the president. More importantly, the Obama White House hasn't tolerated that government gone wild behavior. But it goes on to say, with this Secret Service scandal with the GSA, one more issue like this certainly could open the Democrats up for attack by Republicans. Aaron, what do you say?
I think that's right, but I would point out first that the Secret Service is a nonpartisan agency, so that's certainly, it shouldn't reflect poorly on the president. He has no control over them as political appointees like he does other agencies. The GSA scandal is a little bit different, and that is a good issue for Republicans to use because essentially it's just a sign of bloated, clogged government, too many employees, and not enough accountability so they can run wild with their money. Now, for Mitt Romney specifically, that is a very good issue because when he was governor of Massachusetts, he did a little bit to shrink government, to consolidate some of the agencies underneath him in Massachusetts, and he cut some of those funds. So he can use that as an issue to say, if I'm president, I will shrink some of these agencies, and you might not have this problem under me.
Well, here's one problem with that, Aaron, and Steve, I'll bring you in on this. It was that behind closed doors fundraiser in Florida that Mitt Romney asserted to that wealthy crowd of donors that he might, for example, cut the Department of Education, housing, urban development might be cut. None of these things, though, if he sees the government as being bloated, has he presented to the public on the table as his ideas and his direction for this country, Steve, and which is a part of the problem you have with Mitt Romney.
Well, I just would like to follow up on what Aaron said to answer your question. In general, I think she's correct. But I also think that elections are like sporting events. They have a tendency, momentum just kind of takes on a life of its own. And sometimes when momentum is going against you, perception becomes reality, and these things have a tendency to snowball. I go back to the 2006 midterm elections, for example, when it seemed like the Republicans were already teetering on the brink of getting their teeth kicked in, you had the Mark Foley scandal emerge late that year, and that was a sign yet again the Republicans didn't do what the voters wanted them to do. They're a bunch of hypocrites, and they paid a penalty for that. That momentum snowballed against them, and that's something that stories like this can do as well for the very reasons that were articulated in the quotes that you gave us. If you're going to present yourself as the party that uses government as a solution to people's problems, well, then when government presents problems, you're going to have to own that as well, and that is momentum that can work against you. The one positive is we're sitting here in the middle of April, and the majority of Americans are still not paying attention yet.
Well, absolutely. They're not paying attention, but they see the details here, and we've not heard, Steve, any reasonable Republicans come out and try to attach the president to this Secret Service scandal, and certainly not to this this oversight agency that was obviously run amok.
Well, I think it would be silly for Republicans to do that. I mean, this is sort of, you know, when your opponent is struggling on their own, get out of the way and you let them. I think it would be silly. There'd be a boomerang effect. It would look like the Republicans were clearly trying to get some cheap political kickbacks off of this if they tried to get out ahead of the story, particularly because we don't know all the facts yet. And it's best, in fact, if you're the Republicans, you want this story to stay out there and linger, drip theory, as long as you possibly can in order to sort of try to create that momentum I was just talking about.
But Aaron, is that even possible at this point? Is there something even there that even if it comes down in a drip form that Republicans would be able to gather up and collectively manipulate or even attack the Democrats on?
It depends on what comes out, but I would go back to the point about 2006. Republicans in the House didn't go after some of their own members, and instead the Democrats termed it the culture of corruption, and that did very badly hurt the Republicans going into the 2006 midterms. And now if they turn around and try to attack the Democrats on that, it also looks hypocritical. So Steve is right. They just have to let the Democrats perhaps bury themselves. But the other thing I would point out here is that President Obama has come forward to try to crack down on some of these things. he right away condemned the actions of the Secret Service agents, although, as I pointed out before, it's a nonpartisan agency, so he doesn't have the same kind of control over it. But by coming out right away and saying he condemns it, he's doing a little bit more than the Republicans in 2006 did.
But back to the initial point, which was made by the first read team, Steve, and you hit on this as well, actual problems versus perceived problems. We know, for example, that it was Ryan Priebus who said that the war on women was a made-up problem. He equated it to the war on caterpillars, saying that it wasn't a real war. Obviously, others on the left and maybe a lot of independents would disagree with that. And this seems to fall into this similar category. If Republicans try to capitalize at this stage on either of these scandals, trying to weave together some narrative here, it certainly might not fall under an actual problem to those few, as you point out, Steve, who are paying attention right now.
Well, you know, I think your entire questioning is one of the reasons why we see fewer and fewer Americans participating in the political process. There is some polling out that shows the Washington Post reported Mitt Romney's the least popular nominee of a party since they started polling it in '84. Right. But in the same story, they said, hey, there's plenty of bad news here for Obama as well. And I think it's because the American people want these elections to be about them and what's best for the country, and not these political footballs, not these sideshows, not this street theater that, frankly, both parties use in order to round the sheeple into the pen, raise money, and blame everybody else for the problems that are going on. I think the American people want to know, hey, what is best for the American people? Right. And let's have a real debate about that.
All right, the debate over the economy, not this government gone wild notion that's floating out there. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Aaron. Greatly appreciate it.